Mangwana ni mwalele povu kenjani xexwa svanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry and Diana Master. How are you feeling, Diana?
I'm feeling way better, as you can hear. I can finally talk to you.
And I like that. And it's fitting because we would need you to be talking when NTV turns 1 in exactly 2 days. Do make sure you do your best to celebrate with us. Stay tuned in as we take you through the journey of NTV. But for this morning, it's all about Africa Good Morning. What are the stories we can expect?
So in today's broadcast, we can expect unvaccinated donors block transfusions. Kenyan solar stove may cut cancer risks caused by burning wood. No lights, no water. Surprise, surprise. South Africans fume at the cascading crisis. We're also going to be talking to Talent Gore, who's going to bring us the latest news on the ground in Zimbabwe. So do stick around. After the break, we get into the top stories.
Now, apparently, unvaccinated donors are blocking transfusions. Vaccine skeptics blocking transfusions for life-saving surgeries. Facebook groups inciting violence against doctors. And a global search for unvaccinated donors. COVID misinformation has bred a so-called pure blood movement. The movement spins anti-vaccine narratives focused on unfounded claims that receiving blood from people inoculated against the coronavirus contaminates the body. In closed social media groups, vaccine skeptics who brand themselves as purebloods promote violence against doctors administering coronavirus jabs alongside false claims of mass deaths of unvaccinated people. Taking the hysteria to the next level was the recent high-profile case of a New Zealand couple who sought to block life-saving heart surgery for their infant on the grounds that any blood transfused could have come from a vaccinated donor. Their stance prompted a New Zealand court to take temporary custody of the baby to allow the procedure, but the case became a cause célèbre among vaccine skeptics around the world. George Della Pietra, a Swiss naturopath, founded Safe Blood Donation, a global mediation service that falsely labels mRNA coronavirus vaccines as a health threat. Now, there are a large number of scientists and doctors who not only have great concerns about the COVID vaccines, but are convinced that they also enter the body via the blood through the back door, so to speak, wrote Clinton Ollers, the media director of a Zurich-based nonprofit.
Now, getting into our next story, Kenyan solar stove may cut cancer risks caused by burning wood. As data worldwide suggests, the number of people with cancer is rising. Some poorer nations are looking to find alternatives to cancer-causing fuel sources. Kenya has seen the introduction of solar-powered cookers, which capture the sun's rays instead of using wood fires, which are blamed for 500,000 deaths. It uses mirrors to focus sunlight to a central point, and when it comes to cooking, it is an extremely cheap form of solar power. Its inventor is environmentalist Kenyan, who says, so if you look at the sky like now, it is blue. That is potential for cooking with the sun. And because we live around the tropics, the potential is immense. It is really huge. Smoke from traditional firewood contains a complex mixture of gases and fine particles, and cancer specialists say there are clear links to cancer. Robert Mutengo is a radiation oncologist at HCG Hospital in Nairobi. In relation to cancer, basically this has been linked to some of the respiratory diseases and cancer of the lung as well, he says. A study that was done in the US in 2021 has shown an association between these gases, the greenhouse gases, with lung cancer, and also worsening the prognosis of cancer in those with breast cancer and even in pediatrics cases.
Now, South Africa is known as the Rainbow Nation, and generally a rainbow shows up after there has been some rain. However, there is no water and no electricity, and South Africans are fuming at the cascading crisis. Already struggling without electricity for hours a day, many South Africans are now having to do also without water as power outages batter the supply system. A power failure at a pump station feeding reservoirs and water towers caused taps to run dry in parts of Johannesburg and Pretoria. Provincial utility Rand Water said this week. Thomas Mabasa, a rail worker, said he had taken to showering at work, a luxury not afforded to his children. They have to go to school without bathing, the 43-year-old told AFP. He was among frustrated locals who took to the streets in Soshanguve, a township north of the capital this week, to protest the situation. Africa's most industrialized economy has been crippled by record power cuts in the past year as troubles at debt-laden state energy firm Eskom worsened. The utility provides about 90% of the country's electricity. Criminality has also contributed to the crisis, with Johannesburg's municipality saying hundreds of water tanks were stolen or vandalized in 2022. Hospitals and schools have not been spared. Kalafong Hospital in Pretoria endured 2 days of no water at the weekend. The problems have especially hit Johannesburg's Gauteng province, but not exclusively. Cape Town has had to close some of its beaches due to a sewage spill following electrical faults at some of its sewer stations.
Now, Tunisia's UGTT union accuses President Kais Saied of intimidation and repression. Tunisia's powerful UGTT trade union has accused President Saied of targeting it as a distraction from record low election turnout and what's been called a total failure of his economic policies. On Friday, 3 February, UGTT chief Nuruddin Taboubi held a meeting in Gamath to discuss the arrest of the union's senior official Anis Kabi earlier in the week. The country faces high inflation and a shortage of basic goods. Mr. Taboubi said the president is trying to divert attention from the record low election turnout in the first and second round of legislative elections and the utter failure of economic and social decisions. Tunisia held elections last weekend for a parliament stripped of its powers by Saied. It was boycotted by almost 90% of voters after critics accused him of trying to silence his political opponent. Mr. Taboubi added, "Why is the UGTT a target? Because the authorities want to pass the painful reforms they're always discussing. In order to pass these painful reforms, they need to distract the public with trivia by saying that the reason for the situation is the UGTT." The head of the million-member Union Federation, which jointly won the 2015 Nobel Peace Prize for its role in Tunisia's democratic transition, said Kabi had been arrested to send a clear message that the UGTT is a target.
Now, East African regional leaders on Saturday renewed their call for an immediate ceasefire from all sides of the conflict in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo that pits the country's military against a rebel group it has accused Rwanda of supporting. At a summit in Burundi's capital, Bujumbura, the leaders of the regional East African Community Bloc called for an immediate ceasefire by all parties, according to a communique issued at the end of the meeting. The M23 rebel group has seized large areas of eastern Congo's North Kivu province in a rapid onslaught since October 20 that has threatened the provincial capital, Goma. The conflict has inflamed regional tensions, with Congo accusing neighbor Rwanda of backing and sponsoring the Tutsi-led rebellion. Now, Saturday's meeting was the latest diplomatic effort to try to end the insurgency, which has displaced at least 520,000 people since March 2022 in North Kivu, a territory long plagued by conflict. Saturday's summit was attended by heads of state from Rwanda, Congo, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Burundi, and senior officials from the region. Kenyan President William Ruto was visible standing nearby as Tshisekedi warned the commander. The EAC agreed on a regional force in April last year to be deployed in Congo to help end decades of bloodshed in the area.
Now we close off our top stories in India, where India arrests 2,000 people in child marriage crackdown. More than 2,000 people were arrested on Friday in India's remote northeast after a government crackdown on illegal child marriages, police said. India is home to more than 220 million child brides, according to UN figures, but the number of child weddings has fallen dramatically this century. The two-week police campaign in Assam state began on Friday after Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma called for public help to abolish the evil practice. Sarma said almost 1 in every 8 women in Assam had to bear children before turning 18, which is contributing to high infant and maternal mortality rates in the state. State Police Director General GP Singh said 2,044 people were arrested in the first day, including 52 priests and legal authorities who had presided over marriages. Singh said girls as young as 12 were still being married to men in the state, and police had come up with a total of 4,074 cases to investigate. The legal marriage age in India is 18, but millions of children are forced to tie the knot when they are younger, particularly in poorer rural areas. Many parents marry off their children in the hope of improving their financial security.
That brings us to the end of our top stories. After the break, we cross over to Talent Gore in Zimbabwe. Stay with Africa. Good morning.
Namibia sonder grense vertel weekliks die stories van Namibiërs wat oorsee of elders in die buiteland werk. Die program nooi jou om saam te reis na nuwe bestemmings en meer oor ons mense, hul lewens, talente, sienswyse en Namibië se trotste wêreldwye voetspoor te leer. Volg Namibië sonder grense op Netwerk TV, NTV, oneup2.com en Republikeinse Facebookblad. Namibië sonder grense handel oor uitreik, gesels, reis en wenke en soms toer ons na besienswaardighede in die land waar ons kuier. Kontak grense@synergy.com.na en vertel ons van Namibiërs wat jy oor see ken of om jou reisprodukte te adverteer. Namibië sonder grense, ons land oral in die wêreld.
Now in Zimbabwe, police have declared a war on drug dealers and have started conducting road searches. Here to give us more on the story is Talent Gore in Zimbabwe. Good morning, Talent.
Good morning, Diana, and good morning, Ashwin. Africa, good morning.
Right, so take it away. In your first story, let's talk about the police declaring a war on drug dealers.
Following the expulsion of 8 Dominican convent high school girls, the government has declared war. Government and the police have declared war on drug abusers. Government has introduced drug abusers will now be treated as criminals, not victims. And on Friday they were conducting random searches. The police was conducting random searches at police roadblocks whereby they were arresting anyone whom they thought was drunk or high on drugs, and they also arrested a couple of people whom they found were in possession of illicit drugs, including Bronte. Speaking during the launch of the National Anti-Drug Operation, dubbed No to Drugs and Illicit Substances, See Something, Say Something, Harare Metropolitan Affairs and Devolution Secretary Tafazwa Mguti said the drug scourge had reached alarming levels, hence the introduction of stringent measures. He said that we have stopped looking at rehabilitation first before arrest, because that is the mistake we're doing all along. So the police and the government are saying that if you are found or if you are believed to be drunk or high on drugs, they're going to arrest you. And when you are sober up, that is when you're going to explain where and when you got the drugs. And now they're also targeting drug lord havens. So they say that they're going to be conducting these random searches regularly to make sure that the issue of drugs is addressed in Zimbabwe.
Very interesting way to go about it, because targeting abusers has never worked in any country ever. Heading into the next story, 5,000 students have had their results nullified for cheating. Could you please tell us about this?
Yes, on Friday, the Zimbabwe School Examination Council released the 2022 ordinary level examination results, and 4,961 candidates had their results nullified for cheating. The examinations were marred by several irregularities. If you remember last year, I think I did a story whereby the Zimbabwe School Examination Council was nullified some examinations, and the O-level students had to retake those exams. So now 4,961 candidates had their results nullified due to cheating. The pass rate also rose by 2% from 26.34 in 2021 to 28.96%. And the Zimbabwe School Examination Council said that 278,760 candidates sat for the exams, and of that 183,000 only passed 5 subjects and more. So they say that those who had their examination results nullified should visit the Zimbabwe School Examination Council headquarters if they have any queries.
And now bringing us to the end of your stories, Air Force of Zimbabwe trainer aircraft kills 2 pilots. What happened? What went wrong?
An Air Force of Zimbabwe trainer craft crashed on Thursday near Gweru, killing 2 people. Apparently, the aircraft was on a routine training when it hit a power line and crashed. We did not get any more details. That is all that the Air Force of Zimbabwe told us. And they say that they're going to be releasing the names of those who passed in due course after all the investigations and after the families have been notified. Since then, we haven't received anything yet from the Air Force of Zimbabwe. This is not the first time that an Air Force of Zimbabwe aircraft has crashed. Last year, another one crashed, and this year again, another one has crashed, killing 2 people.
That generally doesn't happen, especially when people do the due diligence after the first crash. Truly saddening news, but thank you for bringing us the news stories as they are from Zimbabwe Talent.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It's always good to have you on Africa Good Morning. Something else that's always good to have is good weather. I enjoyed the rains yesterday. Did you enjoy the rains yesterday?
Of course.
They were fantastic. Let's have a look at the weather predictions. Heading into the economic news stories, China must join Ghana debt restructuring effort soon, and this is according to Germany's Linda. Germany's finance minister singled out China during a visit to Ghana on Friday as he called on countries that have lent to the embattled West African nation to form a creditor committee quickly to help it restructure its debt. I would like to call on all creditors to join the efforts as swiftly as possible, Christian Linda said in a news conference with his Ghanaian counterpart Ken Ofori-Atta. And to be frank, I remind China of its responsibilities as they are a very important bilateral creditor of Ghana, he said, adding that he had done so on the international level at the International Monetary Fund meetings in October 2022.
Now, Ivory Coast cotton output to fall 50% in 2022-2023, says Minister. Ivory Coast cotton output for the 2022-2023 season is expected to fall by 50% to 269,000 tons due to parasites, Agriculture Minister Kobenan Kwasi Adjumani said on Friday. A tiny green grasshopper-shaped parasite called Jasid has infested cotton crops and slashed output forecasts across West Africa for the 2022-2023 season.
Up next is economic indicators just before we talk to Aria about the sport. Now, if I go outside to kill a chicken and that chicken evades me, that will depress me. But if I go home and I find out there's still Nando's in the fridge, I'll feel a little better. And that's how I feel about Arsenal losing to Everton, but still remaining on top of the table. Ari Hohad, please give us the sports.
Yes, morning, Ashwin. Yeah, brilliant intro there. Yes, the reality at the moment is after all the games on the weekend is that Arsenal still lead the English Premier League by 5 points, and they've got a game in hand 50 points they have after 20 games. Manchester City 45 after 21. That's all because of both teams lost over the weekend. It is Arsenal that lost to Everton, 1-0. That was at Everton. And then Tottenham Hotspur, they beat Manchester City. That was the game yesterday, last night, by 1-0. The big winner of the top four over the weekend, Manchester United, and they had a win against the Crystal Palace by 2-0. Also, it was Newcastle that drew with West Ham. So Liverpool also battling, losing 3-0 to Wolverhampton. But all to play for. One date that everybody can maybe put down on your fridge is the 15th of February. A few days' time, 10 days' time, it's going to be Arsenal that play Manchester City at home. That's going to be a crucial game. On to some hockey news. It is the World Cup indoor hockey that continues or started yesterday in Pretoria in South Africa. A tough opening game for South Africa, or for Namibian men and women in the first day. It was Namibian men that lost 7-1 to the Netherlands, and it was the Namibian women that lost a tight game 5-3 to Kazakhstan. And today, just in a few hours, in an hour's time, it is the men of Namibia that play against Austria, 8:30 that time, just now, and then the women play at 9:40 against Canada. Other big results from the tournament, Australia and South Africa in the men playing to a 3-3 draw. On to rugby news. It was lots of rugby played over the weekend. It was United Rugby Championship that continued, also the Six Nations that continued. That's the Six Nations. That is Ireland beating Wales. Big result for Ireland. That was an away win for Ireland, winning 34 points to 10. They're the number one team in the world and confirmed that. Also Scotland, big win for them at Twickenham, beating England in London. And that result 29-23. They also retained the Calcutta Cup with that. France had a tough game in Italy. They did manage to win with a late try. It was 29-24 for France, beating Italy. And then in the rugby, United Rugby Championship, the only game played was the Stormers. That was too strong for the Sharks. That was played in Durban. Good win for them, 46 points to 19. Also briefly, cricket, it is the SA20 that continues. The Durban Super Giants, they beat the Pretoria Capitals by 151 runs, a big win for them. Heinrich Klaassen scoring 104. On his own, he scored more than the Capitals that scored 103. And just closing off some golf news, it was the Baines Cape Town Open played in Cape Town at the Royal Cape Golf Course. So it was a win there for Benjamin Foley-Smith. He's from Zimbabwe. Great win for him, 15 under par, winning the Baines Cape Town Open. And on the ladies' side, it was a Super Sport Ladies Challenge that was played at Sun City. And there it was Cassandra Alexander that won by total score 207. That is Leanne Pace there. She fell back a little bit, 217 her total. She was tied for 7th. So that's the international, or that's all the global sporting news for the weekend. I hope everybody's got a good Monday, and we look forward to some good results of the English Premier League coming up in this week as well. Have a great sport week. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Ari. Now, Diana, I don't know if you know this, but when you mentioned Smith, the Zimbabwean golfer, won that competition. Do you know Zimbabwe has had the #1 golfer in the world before?
Really? I
Yes.
didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
All I know is that when it comes to cricket,
Yes.
Zimbabwe is definitely...
But now cricket, we were never #1 in the world. Nick Price was known as the
Wow.
best golfer in the world for several years, and he's certainly a legend. Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning throughout the sports stories, and indeed this broadcast. After the break, it's your highlights.
NMH at 1 brings you news from all across Namibia. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact NMH1 at synergy.com.na. NMH at 1, your lunchtime news companion.
You're watching Africa Good Morning. If you're just joining us, let's take a look at the highlights from today's broadcast. Vaccines, unvaccinated donors block transfusions. Kenyan solar stove may cut cancer risks caused by burning wood. No lights, no water, South Africans fume at the cascading crisis. China must join Ghana debt restructuring efforts soon, Germany's Lindner says.
Show repeat same time, same place from 8:30. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow from 7 a.m. This has been Africa Good Morning. Swera Jaganaka.